Hi everyone. So this is another one of our plant-based demos. We were originally doing this as a challenge, and now we're doing this just to share recipes, ideas with each other, with the group, or anyone that would like to learn more about plant-based eating. And, all of the benefits that are associated with it, and any of these recipes that you'd like. We will share the recipe. I will share the recipe. And so I wanted to talk about beautiful tomatoes. Why? Because we're in July and about to be in August, and this is tomato season. Okay, tomatoes, full of lycopene, incredibly good for you. Generally, if you're living where we are out east here, tomatoes are usually a little lackluster. Around this time of the year, they're red, they're really sweet and incredibly flavorful. The lycopene that is inherent in them is an antioxidant, is incredibly good for you. In the raw form, if you consume them with a fat like an olive oil, it makes the lycopene even more bioavailable for you. If you macerate them or slightly cook them, it makes the lycopene more bioavailable for you. So it's more able for your body to uptake the nutrients and the lycopene. So I'm doing a really simple gazpacho. Why? I love gazpacho. And if you love a Bloody Mary, you're going to love a gazpacho. So even though we're not going to put vodka in this, that's another show. So, but in the summertime especially, we find that we're eating less. Are we getting the proper nutrients that we need? Maybe not always, especially if it's like a day like today, it's 85 degrees, it's really warm, maybe you've had a little breakfast and now it's lunch and you're just not hungry. You're drinking a lot of fluid hopefully, but you're not hungry. This is a great food and recipe to prepare that is something that has a lot of nutrients, that has some good fat, that has a little bit of salt in it or seasoning in it that, really can bring you into dinner without maybe having a whole meal. So I like to keep this on hand. I like to keep it chilled in my refrigerator. I've made different iterations of this gazpacho. This is a simple, really delicious gazpacho. You can add your own herbs to it if you want to add cilantro, if you want to add parsley, if you want to add a few sprigs of basil on top or dill. The world is your oyster. I'm pro any herb that you want to use. This is the simple base that I like to use. So what we've done here, I'm making a half version. The recipe that you are going to get is the full version recipe, which is 2 pounds of tomatoes, 1 whole cucumber peeled, a quarter of a red onion is what I'm going to use today. I'm sorry, about a half of a large red onion for the recipe normally, or a small red onion, a Cubanelle pepper or an Anaheim pepper, which isn't too spicy. It's got a little tiny bit of a kick, but it's not, really, I could just eat them like this. They're not that spicy. A couple of garlic cloves, a little bit of olive oil, half a cup of olive oil, and a couple tablespoons of sherry vinegar. So for this, I'm halving that recipe because I don't want the full recipe right now. So I am doing a pound of tomatoes, half of a cucumber, and I'm just halving it. So you'll see that I have already my beautiful red tomatoes halved, and I have the cucumbers peeled and just cut in half. Now I'm using a Vitamix, which is a really high-powered blender. I could just throw the tomatoes in like this. They will pulverize. But for these purposes, I'm just cutting them. Many of you may be using a Magic Bullet or a NutriBullet or a different type of blender, which you can do with this. You can use those blenders with this recipe. But I just find that, leaving them whole to kind of just dump everything in here in the Vitamix, leaving everything, like just even cutting the cucumber in half is just very easy. But I just wanted to show you that really you could just cut all these up for your purposes if your blender isn't as high powered as mine. So I'm just quartering these. This is just what I did. These tomatoes are sweet tomatoes, sweet little cherry tomatoes. You could use any tomatoes that you think at your grocery store that look really red, or your farmer's market, heirloom or beefsteak, or that's my dog drinking water. Well, this is real time unedited, folks. So here we go. So I'm adding all of this. Now, I did not leave the peel on. If this was a hothouse cucumber or a smaller little baby cucumber, pickled cucumber, I would use the green. But since it's not, and this is a little bit more fibrous, I don't usually use the peel of a regular cucumber, but I'm using a regular cucumber for this recipe because there's more water inherent in these cucumbers than a hothouse cucumber. And I want it to be a little bit more liquidy to provide a good base for our gazpacho. So I'm dumping the tomatoes and the cucumbers in to my blender. This is a small cup of the Vitamix blender. And I'm doing 1 garlic that I just basically smashed. Now, let's just talk about this for a second. Garlic has an enzyme in it called allicin that is incredibly beneficial for your body. There's many studies that indicate having a little bit of raw garlic, just consuming a little bit of raw garlic is incredibly healthy for you because the allicin is in its natural form. It's unadulterated and you can just consume it and it really works for you. However, having garlic in its raw form can be really tough on the stomach and the breath, but that's another story. It kind of can burn sometimes, and it's a little hard to take. But if you use raw garlic in a recipe in its raw form, you're getting those same benefits, but it's got all of these other ingredients in it, which kind of don't make this so harsh on your body. So I'm putting 1 whole garlic in. But as with any recipe, after you make this, try it. If you feel like, this could use more garlic, put it in. Absolutely. This is you're making the recipe your own, right? So I'm going to take this Cubanelle pepper, and since I'm halving this recipe, I'm doing, that's about half. So I'm doing half of this Cubanelle pepper. Generally, sometimes there's seeds in here. I just pick them out. Throw them away. And again, I could just throw this into my Vitamix the way it is. I'm just for our purposes, just cutting it up a little bit, throwing that Cubanelle in there, like so. So now we have our garlic, our Cubanelle pepper, we have our tomatoes, we have our cucumbers, and I'm going to add just a little bit of salt. You don't have to. I'm using iodized sea salt. Why iodized? Because we are very often deficient in iodine in this country specifically. I mean, other countries too, but in this country, since about 1950s, 1960s, we've seen a drop in our iodine levels. In the beginning of the 20th century, iodine was used in a lot of our baked goods and a lot of our flours. It is not anymore. And since then, since we don't have the iodine in the baked goods, we don't get it as much. And we want to be careful because it could lead to thyroid issues. You want to make sure you're getting your iodine. Seafood has iodine. There's other things that have iodine, but you don't have to use it in salt if you're salt sensitive. But if you do use salt, getting a nice sea salt that has iodine in it is a good idea. So I just do like a little pinch of sea salt. So now I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. So there we go. 1/4 cup here of the EVOO. The regular recipe calls for a 1/2 cup. Use this if you like. And then I'm going to do just 2 tablespoons of this beautiful sherry, this beautiful Spanish sherry. Love it. Gives it a nice little punch. Okay, so I think that's it. I don't think I've got anything. Oh, I did. See, that's why I'm glad I write it down. So, again, talking about the red onion. Red onions are sweeter than white onions, or you could use a sweet onion for this recipe. I like using red because it's sweet. Normally, I would be using 1 small red onion, but for this recipe, since I'm halving it, and this is a large red onion, I'm going to use a 1/4 of this. But I'm going to take this opportunity to discuss how to cut the red onion and to talk just a minute about knife skills. So when you're cutting something, the cutting board should be unable to move. If you have a cutting board that is going like this, that is not safe. Wet a paper towel, fold it in half, and place it underneath your cutting board and adhere it. And make sure that when you press on it, it's not moving. We never want a cutting board that's moving. Okay, that's the first step. Second step is to have a sharp knife. I know there's a lot of people that are afraid of sharp knives. You should be more afraid of a dull knife. A dull knife is going to require you to push more down on the item that is being cut in order to cut it, right? And if you're pushing your body weight onto something to get it to cut, an injury from a knife that is not sharpened is going to be a lot more acute than an injury or a little nick from a sharp knife. And we've seen that across the board in many different circumstances in the kitchen. Knives have to be sharpened. So, I have I have Merkle, I have Henkel, we have all different types of knives here, chef knives. This is just a regular everyday knife that I'm using. It has been sharpened. Now, I'm not going to go through, chefs often use sharpening stones, which you could use. We could do a demo on that. I'm just taking a very simple household sharpener here to show you how to do this. So a very simple household sharpener, a dry knife that has not been used, and there are arrows on this, and the arrows indicate which way we should sharpen. So we're going to take the heel of the knife, which is here. We're going to put that here, and we're just going to sharpen it. And we're going to just do it one way. We're never going to pass it in here again like this. We're just doing this. We're just doing this. So about 20 times I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to test it. I'm going to test it on my vegetable or fruit or whatever. Usually a good tester is a tomato, because if a knife isn't sharp, it's going to smash a tomato into soup. But if it's sharp, it's going to cut right through it really lovely, in a really lovely way. So this is just about 20. I know a lot of you are afraid of sharpened knives. I've heard this before. Again, it's just about practicing. Okay, so that's just about practicing now. So I'm going to take my sharpened knife. We're going to, for most applications of an onion, we're going to leave this part intact, because it keeps the whole structure together. Okay, so we're going to cut this in half. Now, mind you, when I'm cutting anything, I'm making sure that it's flat and it's sturdy, and I'm not going like this. I'm always doing a bear claw, if you will, which I'll show you more of right now. So this is the other side of this, so I'm going to use the side, and I'm just going to do a little trim right here. And at this point, I'm going to just peel the outside. Hopefully I won't cry. I might though. But I'm not sad. I've seen these great goggles that people use, onion goggles. I keep meaning to get them, but I always forget. I just end up crying in the kitchen all the time. People are like, what's wrong? Onions. Okay, so what we're doing here is that we're keeping this steady at all times. We do not want to cut like this. Okay, this is not fencing. This is culinary. We're going to hold the knife tight. The onion sturdy right here. We're going to place one cut, not all the way on the bottom, but a little bit up from the bottom, like right here, like so. And we're going to cut it through. And we're going to take it out. Now, depending on how big the dice is, you may want to go smaller or larger. You may want to have just 3 cuts is usually what I do. So I'm going to do one more cut here and pull it out very gently. And one more cut on top, making sure that I'm not going too close to where my palm is, that I'm just going across like this to make that other cut. I'm pulling it out. Now I'm going to just cut the top of this, okay? So I'm just going to make some cuts here on the top like that. Hold it together. Hold it together. Hold it together the whole time. You'll get some of these that come out. That's okay. And now I'm just going to dice. It's just a faster, easier way to dice. Keep in mind how I'm holding my knife. Okay? I'm holding my knife, holding the heel of it right here. Both fingers holding it. And I'm doing a rocking motion. Oops, starting to cry. So when I cut, I always leave the tip on the cutting board. And I'm going to just rock and rock and rock and rock. Practice this. Practice this at home, okay? Practice rocking so that you're not just doing this. You're doing this. You're rocking. Do it slowly. You're not, this is not a race. This is not chopped. No one's timing you. Just practice rocking. Practice rocking, okay? So now for something like this, we're not actually rocking on this. We're just actually chopping because we have to just get the dice. So now we just have like a nice dice. This is the dice that we've got. See? Look at this. Now this is a nice dice. And that's what you want to do. This is great for sauteing. And you can make this as big or as small as you want. Okay, now I'm using, like I said, about a quarter of this onion. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going to take about that much and throw it in. Maybe a tiny bit more because I love the flavor in here. But you don't want to overdo it. Like I said, with the garlic, you know, you can experiment how you want this to taste. You can put some pepper in here. You can put some other seasoning if you want. I like it just like this. We're going to close the top. So this is about, so let me just see. I can actually use a little more of that onion. I'm looking at the whole thing. I didn't cut this half. So that's about a quarter of the onion. Yeah, that's correct. So again, you don't have to dice it like this in your Vitamix or in your Superpower blender, but I'm doing that just to show you how to cut the onion. All right, let's go. Gazpacho. So you don't even have to do it for that long. It was probably about 20, 25 seconds or so. You don't even have to do it that long, but I like it when it's a little foamy. And it's this beautiful, oh my God, this beautiful color. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Look at this. Oh my God. Now, if you chill this and put this in the fridge, it is going to be, I mean, I can drink it just like this, which I'm going to, totally. But you can put this in the fridge, let it get nice and cold, throw a little tomato slice on the top, throw some herbs on the top, do a little more olive oil on the top if you'd like. But have this as a midday drink instead of, you know, something else that you might eat because you're not really hungry but want to eat something. Instead of having like a granola bar or something like this, you have this nutrient-packed, antioxidant-rich drink that's delicious. Oh my God, so good. See, I'm so glad I only added one garlic. Sometimes garlic can be, some garlic is just stronger than others. Sometimes I've tried this and put one piece of garlic in, and I was like, oh, it really needs chew. That garlic was a happy garlic. That garlic was really flavorful, and this is delicious. It's garlicky, it's tomatoey, it's got rich fat, it has a nice kick from that sherry. It is a delicious gazpacho, great for the summer. Try it. Make it your own. Let me know your recipe. Okay, we're back. So we did a quick edit because I wanted to wash my beautiful little Vitamix because we're going to use that again for this recipe. We're going to make a tofu-based ranch dressing. So we've talked about tofu being really, you know, high in protein and a really, really good on a plant-based diet, right? So we want to have the ability to have protein in different items, right? Because we're doing this, you know, in a bit of an unconventional way. We're not using meat. So we're using a tofu here, which is an organic, this is an organic silken tofu. Now, a firm tofu or an extra firm tofu is really good in recipes that require you to stir fry or to maybe cut it into sticks, maybe bread it. There's all different ways that you can use tofu. You could use it in a lot of different preparations in a very similar way that you would use chicken. And basically, to me, I haven't had chicken in a while, but has a similar flavor, right? It's a blank slate. You can put anything into it and it will take the flavor of it. So for these purposes, I'm using a silken tofu because I'm using it as a dressing. And silken will just blend into a creamy dressing without us having to use mayonnaise or buttermilk or something that isn't plant-based. Another version of this that you can try, I'm just doing a regular ranch. I'm using dill. But you can put a half of an avocado in here or a whole avocado and make like a green goddess version of this, which is delicious, monounsaturated fat. Do it. Try it. Okay, but I wanted to just do a basic one, and I have a slaw here. So this is a 2-part recipe. We're going to do the dressing, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the slaw. Okay, so let's do the dressing first. First of all, we have our silken tofu here. And this is an organic silken tofu. This is Nisoya, I believe the brand is. And so I'm just going to take this whole thing of this beautiful tofu. It's getting everywhere. I am going to just place this into, so it's really soft. You can see it's already just like falling apart. Putting that as the base of our dressing. Ooh, it got everywhere. Okay, let me get my spoon. It is in my handle. That's all right. Okay, anyway. So we're adding some things to this dressing to just bring up the flavor and give the tofu a flavor. So some of the things that we're going to be doing is I'm just going to soften this up a little bit with a little bit of plant-based milk. I'm doing 2 tablespoons. This is not a lot. It's just to give it a little bit more of a thinner viscosity because tofu is thick. So this is, by the way, organic coconut milk. I'm going to shake it because I forgot to. But you can use any non-dairy milk that you want. Just don't use flavored. You don't want hazelnut flavored ranch. Oh, don't want that. So we just want it to be plain because it's just giving it, loosening up the dressing just a little bit. Oh, that's like 1 tablespoon. And I'm going to do a little less because it's got in there. It's 2 tablespoons. This is coconut. You could use whichever one you want. You could use almond. You could use soy. You could use oat if you'd like. Okay. 2 smashed garlic. The same thing that we talked about for this gazpacho, full of allicin, good for you. I'm putting 2 in. These are very flavorful. I'm gonna do 1.5 because I remember I just said to you that these garlics they packed a punch. I'm gonna do 1.5. Taste it, and if it needs the other half, I'm gonna put it in. You see? Going. Okay. Zest of 1 lemon. So it's 1 small lemon that I just zested because I love lemon and I just love the way it smells and I love what it does. And there's very few things that lemon isn't good in. I'm not using actual lemon juice, but I just want to use some of the lemon zest because I love it. I just love it. Just brightens up everything. I'm just throwing that in there. It's about, for that 1 small lemon, I think it was about ½ tablespoon. So I am also using some golden miso, or what they call mellow white miso, right? This is from Miso Master Organic. It just gives a flavor. It's like an umami flavor. I'm sure you've heard of that, like what mushrooms kind of give to a recipe. It's a deep, rich flavor, a little salty, a little earthy, and just elevates the flavor profile of what you're making. And I just love it. And just a little bit. This is a ½ tablespoon, but it's a full ½ tablespoon. So the recipe calls for ½ tablespoon. I'm just adding a little more because I'm feeling like, adventurous. Okay, so this is optional, always optional, but I am adding a tablespoon of nutritional yeast just for the nutrition, and I like that kind of funky, cheesy flavor it gives the dressings. I'm adding 1 tablespoon of chives. I'm going to do 1 or 2, but I'm adding 1 here. I couldn't find fresh, so I'm using the freeze-dried, which is fine. So that's going in. Okay. I am going to add a little bit of salt. So you could add, I'm pinching it in, and I think that this is about ½ teaspoon. But you could do a little more if you feel like you want it. I'm going to add some onion. Now, I'm just adding 3 slices. If you want to use onion powder, do 2 tablespoons of onion powder, but I'm adding the fresh in here. That's just going to blend up nicely in here. And fresh herbs. Look, if you want to really be successful, I find, on a plant-based diet, or predominantly plant-based, if you're having most of your diet, plants, and unprocessed, you want to have herbs in your recipes, fresh herbs. Grow them if you can, or get them, freeze them, do whatever you have to do. But what it does is that it just elevates the flavor of all of your food. And it's really the only thing that can accurately compete with processed foods. Processed foods are designed to, make you want to eat more of them, laden with unhealthy fats and sugars. And in a recipe that is a plant-based or a whole food recipe, if you're adding these fresh, vibrant herbs, try different ones, try different seasonings as well. But these herbs, tarragon, thyme, here we're using dill and parsley. It's just going to bring up the flavor in such a way that you're not going to miss the processed version of what you're having, for sure. So with that, half a cup of dill and a half a cup of parsley, right in. Use more if you want, less, but this is my version. I like it herby, herbalicious. So with that, olive oil, and I'm using sherry because it's already out, but you could use apple cider vinegar as well for this recipe. Okay, I'm using a little bit of this. Now you don't have to use too much. I'm using a quarter cup. You don't have to use too much of olive oil, but I like what this gives it. It's a little bit. It's a quarter cup of olive oil. Ooh, I'm dripping olive oil everywhere. It's okay. I'll just rub it on my arms later. It's good for you. It's my Aunt Millie used to do. She'd be like, oh, olive oil spilled. That's okay. BP Millie. Okay. So 1.5 tablespoons of sherry. Okay. Vinegar. Not sherry, alcohol, sherry vinegar. Or apple cider vinegar, which is fine in this recipe as well. And so you could do some black pepper as well if you'd like. You could add more salt, add more garlic. I am going to taste this for garlic in a minute to make sure that it's the way I want it. But here's our ranch dressing, folks. Okay. Might have to beat it down. Gorgeous. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. A little high for a minute. Woo! That's it. Okay. Oh, it's beautiful. It's very green. This is kind of like a green goddess ranch, actually. Okay. Keep this in your fridge, and you don't need to buy that nasty wishbone stuff anymore, or whatever packaged stuff there is. This is all you need. We used to make all different variations of this in culinary school. And this is one of my favorites. Oh my God, it's so good. I actually think I could put more of this garlic, but this is just a me thing. So I am going to add more garlic. I'm going to add more of that garlic. And I'm going to add a little bit more salt, sorry. If you don't want it, you don't have to add it, but I feel like it needs it. But it's so fresh and flavorful, and I just absolutely love this flavor. I'm going to just add a little. I'm just going to do a little. That's it. That's it. We've got ranch. So again, you can use less of the herbs. You can use more. I mean, it's up to you. This is a canvas for you. This is, you can make this the flavor you want. Oh my God, so good. You could just use this with vegetables as a dip. Sorry, folks. You can use this vegetables as a dip over salad, whatever you want. I mean, it's just very versatile. So again, make it your own. I'd love to know how you make it your own. You don't have to use the nutritional use. If you don't like it, it's fine. It's just my own thing for nutrients. I like to put it in. Okay, let me show you what I'm going to do with this. So here we have a slaw. And what I'm going to do, let me move this. Let's do a very typical slaw that I like to use. I'm using white cabbage, purple cabbage. Okay, these are cruciferous vegetables that are incredibly important for your diet, incredibly important for colon health. Get as much of them in during the week as you can. I just julienned some scallions, some green onions in here, about 3 scallions, 2 cups of white cabbage, a cup of red cabbage, and half a cup of carrots. What I also put in here is half a bulb of fennel. Now, you may like this. It's an acquired taste. I love it. It has a little bit of a licorice flavor to it. It is not licorice. It just has that little slight tang of licorice. And you can smell it, and it smells like it. It's a wonderful, these are fennel fronds, which is a wonderful herb. But fennel itself is an antioxidant. It's incredibly good for you. I just took I cut half of it and just sliced some of it and put it in here. Very typically, especially in Mediterranean cooking, for me in Italian cooking, making a salad and just putting a little bit of this in. Now, you don't want it to overtake the salad. You want to use it as you would use an herb. So you just want it to be a highlight in that salad, and not just like you're getting a mouthful of fennel. But it's delicious roasted too in the fall with all types of squash, acorn squash, or even sweet potatoes. But I like to put it in here. So I did about half of a bulb of this. And it's, oh my God, it's so delicious. I like to eat it raw, but this is the basic slaw. And what I'm going to do is marinate this entire slaw with our tofu ranch dressing. I usually marinate it for a few hours, but I'm just going to take our tofu ranch, throw it over on the top. Okay, that was about a cup and a half. Now I may need more. I may need more once I mix it. But this is my version of like a backyard coleslaw. So if you come to my house, this is what you're getting sometimes. You never know what I'm putting in your food. It could be tofu. It could be dill. But I try to find creative ways to make these recipes healthy, of course, right? I want everyone to be healthy. I want people who come to eat at my house healthy. I want my family to be healthy. And I just find that this is such a lovely, accompaniment to like an outside barbecue or a replacement to a traditional coleslaw. That's, got tons of mayo in it. But if you wanted this to be more white and you didn't want to scare the kids, you could with the green color, which I love the green color, but you just don't add as much of those herbs. You could just make this a white ranch and use powdered white onion. You could use the garlic and maybe just a little bit of chives, but not all the dill and parsley, which really gives it that green color. I love the green. So here's another thing that I do. I take some raw cashews that are cut up and I sprinkle them in. I do for this whole thing, I'm probably going to do about a quarter cup. And then when I plate this, now I'm going to let this sit in the fridge because I want it to really macerate. When it sits in the dressing, as you probably know, the cabbage is going to shrink. It's going to let out some water. So that's why I didn't do too much of the dressing, because whenever you dress coleslaw, you should always, err on the side of less, because what will end up happening is that it will really absorb the dressing. And you'll find that it will be overdressed when you finally go to eat it. So you want to do a little bit less. So I just put this on a plate. And I'm going to serve it like this. I'm going to just add some more crushed raw cashews. You could do walnuts too. I just like the cashews in this. Love raw cashews in this. And then I'm just going to add some of these raw. I might chop a little bit more of them. Some of these cashews right on top. And it's just beautiful. There's another version that's more of an Asian version of this that I just shared the recipe in the shared recipe folder that we do. And that is a different type of dressing, which is really delicious. But whole food, plant-based. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed it. Would love to know what you think of it, what you'd like me to demo next, and keep sharing your recipes. Thank you, everyone.